missions anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
Lori, I don't know what the deal was with that, but
I don't know.
It should be straightened out. Either that or what's the value in, having the terms and knowing what your expectations are.
Yeah.
But Art's there you are, Art. Good. All right, so I think we got everybody.
Yeah, 1 second. Let me just get us live to YouTube, and I'm gonna let Pete. You got a good connection now, Peter?
We had him.
Let's, Pete, did you answer? I'm not sure. Can we hear you?
I don't think you can hear us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that he. Hey, Peter, give a wave if you can hear.
Call on somebody.
I don't see him on. We saw his.
His camera's on, his video's on, but I think he's having trouble with his. Huh. I bet you he's trying to call me.
Of course, you blink and here we're in the middle of January already. Holy mackerel. It's crazy. Spring's coming.
Oh, yeah. So it's Groundhog Day.
That's right. That's the next big major obstacle here, right? Yeah, I'm just checking.
I think his speakers are probably turned off.
Yeah, it could be. How's the water level, Will? Looks like it's coming up.
Oh, yeah, it's coming right up. All this rain's helping it out.
Is that Sucker Brook, that crossing, is that all done? The road?
I think so.
Yeah. I went down there just before they were closing it off, and what are they doing? Installing all new piping?
Oh, they just put a sleeve in.
Oh, they did. Oh, okay.
Yeah. They pushed a sleeve underneath of it, and then grouted all around the sleeve and helped grout in it.
Huh. Well, if they can prevent all that sedimentation coming into the lake, wow.
Well, that would be nice, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, no kidding. Get the state to do anything. How'd you make out, Pam?
He's going to try one more time. He logged out and he's going to log back in. Okay. Has Art spoken? Does Art need?
Art, are you on, Art?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, no Perfect. Problem for you.
Great.
Okay,
thank you.
That's good.
Pete came on initially and then we lost him.
Yeah. All right, let's see.
He went out squirrel hunting.
Yeah, right. Come on. I was scrolling through some public television stuff, and they've got almost an hour-long thing about squirrels in the world.
Can you hear Pete?
Peter.
No, his mouth is moving, but we can't hear him.
Oh, wonderful.
So, Pete, we heard anything? All right, let me mute myself and I'll call him and I'll.
Anyways, before we go on, they had a almost an hour-long program on squirrels. It's unbelievable. So they're pretty interesting animals. I know you like, for Thanksgiving, but
Yeah. It's like you got red squirrel, the little one, red squirrels. You got flying squirrels here. You got gray squirrels, and now the black squirrels from Maryland are coming up.
Yeah.
And the blacks are way bigger than the grays.
Are they? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So you only need one for dinner, huh?
Yeah.
Jesus, unbelievable.
Jerry's
I thought today we've got a lot of holly in the yard, and you know how robins come in this time of year, they swarmed our holly bushes eating the berries. I mean, unbelievable.
Really?
Yep, big time.
Jeez.
Oh well, we are out in the natural preserve here in the northwest corner.
All right, George, he's just gonna try to troubleshoot it on his own, and he said,
Okay.
"Don't wait."
All right. Well, it's about 8 minutes after 7. We'll call the January 11th meeting to order. We got the roll call. Craig is absent excused. Peter is trying to get connected. Do you have anybody signed up for public comment, Pam?
I do not.
Okay. Agenda review. The only thing I would suggest is we just got this in from Pam on the Kentucky Fried Chicken facility. If we could add that under new business, under 6, if that's okay with everybody.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Anybody else have any suggestions or needs things changed order-wise or issues? Okay, number 4, we don't have any public hearing tonight. Old business is the 20-29 was the zone regulation change. That's coming up on the 25th. And 5B, the 20-30 special permit application, that's also coming up on the 25th for public hearing. So under 6, new business. This is what Pam's been tracking down as the Kentucky Fried Chicken facility. And the application is signed. It's not checked about special permit, but I presume that's what we're doing here. Is that right, Pam?
Yeah, from what I can tell with,
Okay.
yes, that he's coming in as a landscaping yard.
Okay, but it's under a special permit application.
Yes, it would be in the town gateway zone.
So I'm just going to check my copy off as that. So with that in mind, and what you've had from them, how soon do you think they're going to have? You don't really have a complete application, do you?
No, and as the commission might know, this is a business that is already underway.
Yeah.
And so, I have a wetlands application too. The proximity to the wetlands is, it's smack dab in the middle of some wetlands. So he's going to need wetlands approval. And his engineer is working on the plan. You know, I can't tell, I don't know if you've had time to look at the site plan, like if they cut off some of the path there, you know, I'm pretty sure that the fire marshal's gonna, you know, we're gonna want comments from him. So we want to get a good site plan with all of the outdoor storage located. Because there's, while he penciled up, you know, an old copy of a survey at that location, I believe that there are more outbuildings than even what's been penciled in. And
Well,
outside storage.
I'll be frank with you. I think until we get a legitimate application with the paperwork, my opinion is that we should, you know, let them know that we got another meeting on the 25th and that they should fill in the squares and have the paperwork there, and let's look at it legitimately. So we give them proper exposure to what our regulations are, and we have the enough information to make a decision about their application. What's everybody else think? Well, first of all, let me, is Peter on at all? Not yet, right?
No.
All right.
Yes,
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
you
he's
are.
there.
Okay, Peter, good. All right.
technical difficulties.
That's it. Name of the
The
game.
operator.
Back to the old adage, shut it off and reboot it.
Yeah, no, good deal. Okay, let me seat John Cooney tonight for this so that we can be a full slate here. So my opinion is that we should because it just came in this afternoon. I think let's wait until the 25th to get this thing filled in, and before we make a motion to set up the public hearing, so we have something to deal with. What's everybody's thought?
Yeah, I agree.
Art?
Yeah, I think we should wait.
Okay. John?
Agreed.
Okay. Jerry?
Agreed.
Okay. All right. So Pam, just let them know that we've received it, and we'd look to see them fill in the blanks for the meeting on the 25th, if you could. And then we can have something that we can really deal with. I mean, we don't want to slow anything down, but on the other hand, let's not treat these people, you know, differently than we would hopefully everybody else gets treated.
Well, Pam, will our engineer have everything ready by the 25th?
I can't confirm that.
Well, we can make that decision though, Art. You know, we see what we have on the 25th, and then we'll go from there if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
All right.
any building permits been taken out for renovations for the building?
No, these are he filed a wetlands application and this application for development before your commission. And those are the only applications we've received so far. I think the point has been driven home to him, but not for nothing. I'm not sure that there can be any building permits issued until there's a zoning permit issued, and there can't be a zoning permit issued until
We go through this process.
Right.
goes
Yeah.
through the permitting process. Yeah.
Because they've done modifications to the building with no permits.
Yep. All right, well, we'll deal with this again on the 25th. All right, we've got the minutes from the December 14th meeting. We had, actually, everybody was there at the meeting. We had a motion to approve.
So move.
Okay. Peter, do we have a second for the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Art. Any corrections or modifications to the minutes? All in favor, just raise your hand if you would. Okay. Looks like we got everybody approving it. Okay. Communications, Pam?
I have a card for you, George, from, I'm sorry, there was no package to put it in, but I have the card and I can copy it and email it to you tomorrow.
Okay, all right.
It was a note of thanks from a resident.
Oh, really? Oh,
Mhm.
it's been the candies.
For the work that you folks do. It was a nice note, so.
Well, that's, and I was, when I talked to Craig this afternoon, as he told me what was going on with him and his availability, that's one of the things that he and I talked about together is, I think, first of all, we've got a very active and interested commission that are everybody. I've been on commissions here, the planning and zoning, where people, pick up their packets at the last minute. There's no preparation. People don't go out to the sites. Our commission, I feel, without a doubt, everybody is active and interested in our community seriously and for all the right reasons. So I appreciate everybody's dedication and commitment to that. And I know there were no gifts sent out, Pam, but we I think collectively have to tell you how much we appreciate your dedication to your position and your knowledge and thoroughness and keeping us informed. So again, a thank you and Happy New Year to everybody. But I wanted to share that Craig and I have been involved with land use for a long time, as a few of us have been. Peter's been involved for a long time. Arthur's been involved for a long time. I know, Will, you're involved with so many other things, so I'm so pleased that you got involved, and now we got Jerry and John involved. So this is good. We've got a good commission, and everybody pulls their weight, so that's important. Staff report, Pam?
I guess I don't have much by way of development, just to say that, the building permits are continuing to come in with remodels and improvements to existing structures. We have a few new homes, single family residences. I guess I'd want to report that Bob is looking to, before he leaves, hire an additional FTE, and by way of a zoning enforcement officer, a combined position, zoning enforcement officer, inland wetlands officer, and blight officer, to handle the bulk of all the enforcement activity.
Yeah.
So he's working on that job description, and I know that's definitely something that he plans to.
So that's got to go to civil service and.
He may do an emergency appointment in the interim, but and then yes, it'll make its way through civil
Right.
service.
How's Mark doing?
Mark is recovering well, but he's not back yet. But he's recovering.
Any news on the Hartford Hospital opening?
The opening, no, but a CO was issued on Friday.
Oh, good. Okay.
Oh, I was up at the ER up at Spencer this morning.
Yeah.
And this is their last week there. Next Monday, they start over at the new building.
That sounds about right. The 18th. Yeah. Yep. So
Yeah,
they had the State Department of Public Health out there today. So there was a big push to get them their CO for this past Friday.
Oh, that's good. They should put some color on that little shack that's out there by the heliport. Man, I'll tell you, small details. They do so many other things, and then you look at that bare wood thing, it looks
maybe their plans include that. They wouldn't need to do that before a CO, but hopefully they're gonna,
I'll have to call Phil.
Spruce, right?
If he's got that in his detail plan, right? Okay. When is Bob going to have that 8 vehicle parking spot on Main Street completed? Have you heard? We tore the building down?
Half the building, right? No, I haven't heard.
It's going to be awfully small vehicles. All right.
Hey, George, I think one of the issues there is dealing with DOT to get a curb cut.
Oh, okay. All right.
Now.
And they've made application?
I don't know that, but
yeah, right.
I've discussed with them. So.
Yeah, okay. Sorry I mentioned it. Okay, so other business, really the focus tonight is going to be, and we don't have election of officers under 10B, but I said something out to everybody, just as hopefully we could get some, kind of a structure here so we can start moving this along, because we've been kind of bogged down with having these Zoom meetings. Not that we haven't been productive, because we haven't held anybody's application up, that's for sure. But is everybody prepared to discuss their areas?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Why don't we go through it then? Looking at this, again, I looked at it again this morning, but the introduction, I don't think we'll maybe have to tweak a couple things. But Peter, what do you have on your on section 2?
Well, pretty much everything in section 2 was updating of figures like population and dynamics. The 2-3 on page 2-3 revised the paragraph at the bottom of the page to remove the 2 large projects that were never built, the Aurora Rosa Estates and the project on Wallens Hill, which the town now owns. We have to update the housing information. There's 3 places, 2.4, 2.5, 2.6. 2.7 is seasonal population and economic characteristics, revise labor and tax-based statistics, update all grand list and tax information, and then 2.10 is replace the old zoning regulations with the new zoning information, and 2.11 and 12 is replacing the old maps with our new zoning maps.
Okay.
And under section 3, at that point, we had not had any much input from the public or other boards and commissions, which we now do have some.
Yeah.
One of the good things was, which I had pushed for when I first got on, and was if you look at Steve Williams' letter, with the outlying areas where there is no water systems, if we have any subdivisions or anything like that, to add in cisterns or some type of water supply for fire protection.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We presently do not have in any of our subdivision regulations or anything.
Mm-hmm. Oh, those are good points. So that way,
yeah,
when they have an application, it always comes up, but it's good to give everybody a heads up on the master plan to, include that in the thinking up front, so that we don't, play catch up.
Right.
As time goes
and
on.
that could be something we can include in the plan of development conservation that may be required in the future, or will be if we ever get to subdivision regulations, to add that to it.
Okay. We did do re-subdivision, we reviewed the subdivision regulations back, had to be like 2007 or 2008. And I think Bud Whalen was involved with that pretty much.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, so we're, that's good. We could look at that once we get this thing finished, is just to tweak that if we could. And the other thing is that I think I copied everybody, the 2019 CERC town profile has a lot of the information I think that we need to incorporate in these chapters that you're talking about, Peter.
Yes, I believe it does, looking through it.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for your involvement with that, those 2 sections.
George, a question on with Pete. Pete, how much water storage would you require?
Standard is usually a 10,000 gallon cistern for depending on the number of structures being built. What they did do on Reaching Hill Road about 8 years ago, when they subdivided some of the old campground up there, the Rollins campground, they did put a 10,000 gallon cistern next to the road. The problem with that wasn't done with any regulations or anything other than being inspected by the building inspector, and no one is claiming ownership or maintaining it.
Oh, that's a good point. You brought that up, Art and Peter. And those regulations the thing is that those things can change as technology and experience improves through the years. So it's good that we have. Is there something as a guideline, Peter, that's out there that we could use as instead of a specific putting in our regulations, that we have at least an authority to refer to?
Other than an NFPA, and I have not researched it through them to see what they have. I've just looked at other states and other cities or towns that have it in their zoning regulations or in their subdivision regulations, what they require.
All right, so we should just make a note of that we should look at that with our subdivision, because most of our developable land are really, it's outside of probably our service area for sewer and water. And those are important considerations, so.
Well, if Winchester Center ever got up at the top of the hill there, I mean, now Winchester Center, but up on Wallen's Hill.
Yeah.
Where the land that we took over, if that got developed, we definitely would want some tanks up there, probably more than one.
Well, that development is actually, there's already water mains in place and hydrants there.
Right.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, we got a big storage tank up there too.
Well, but there's actually hydrants and water mains and sewer in that development already.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's important too, to work with sewer and water to make sure that we've got the resources to pressure wise and volume wise. Because if you got something that, well, we've got the opportunity, we're seeing this with, some of the rural areas, that if we have something which is going to require a sprinkler system. I know what I dealt with up in Pittsfield on a project. They got water and sewer, but when we needed water and we needed a volume and we wanted pressure, it wasn't enough to handle the level of a sprinkler system requirement for the use. So,
yes, and just as an example, George, ECAT in their present building that they have, they have a pressurized fire sprinkler system with a diesel-driven pump and a 7,500 gallon tank, and that's adequate for the present building they have, and it's also large enough for a sprinkler system for the building they proposed.
Oh, okay, all right.
But
Well, that's
when you
good.
talk size of tank, I mean, that's what they're looking at. That's 7,500 there, but for underground cisterns, it's usually a minimum of 10,000 gallons.
10,000. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Excellent. Any questions of Peter in the first couple of sections, 2 and 3? We'll talk about the logistics or the operational, what we've got to do here to get these things incorporated later on. But I had section 4 and 5, and these were the 4.1 is the planning areas. The 5 planning areas are Lake District, Northern and Eastern Winchester, downtown, high density downtown neighborhoods, and Route 800 corridors. Frankly, we obviously dealt with all this in our the zoning regulation upgrade, and I don't see a need for a change in these things. They're concept areas, and I think we adequately address those things. Actually, we're doing the zoning regulations. We're working with the consultant we used from Cincinnati. He thought that the issue of the POCD update, he felt we could pretty much tweak it once we did the regulations, and we didn't, take the time to do that. But I don't see a change in that. Section 5.1 is the green print for Winchester. It appears to be still irrelevant. It's still relevant, not irrelevant. But basically, we've got the rest of the commission that's involved here and all the current events. Anybody have any comments on either of those 2 sections beyond what I've thrown into the mix?
No.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay. The next 2 areas are Jerry. You've got conservation and development.
Yeah, section 6 basically focused on conservation and also the general makeup of the character of the town in relation to that. Mentioned a number of different strategies and goals, and I don't know if the commission actually wanted to review to see if any of those are still pertinent in today's environment. But the thing that was, I think, of interest, especially with what's happened in the past year, is that Winchester and surrounding towns are becoming an attractive destination for those trying to leave New York City and the New York area. So I think that as we look at the rural areas, the rural residential specifically, do we need to take a look at that as far as how do we want to attract that type of development, first of all? And if doing so, how do we maintain the rural nature of what we have here in this town, which is quite substantial? So that's what I brought up in there. We can have a discussion about that if necessary. Section 7 was talking about development, and once again, a lot of talk about conservation. And one of the things that I brought up originally was, and this goes back to 6 as well, what's our percentage of the state's goals of open space? Or have we reached our maximum? I know towns like Norfolk, they've actually gone beyond their open space requirements in order to make up for other areas in the state that have not met their open space goals. So I know that was a number that we didn't know at the last time we had this discussion. So I don't know if Pam has that information or what we have as far as the Winchester Land Trust. But once again, the whole thing about development, basically the plan of conservation and development was more focused on conservation and development. So I wanted to open that up and see if there was, if we do actually want to develop this town, we do want to expand the base, and what does that mean while still maintaining the character as described in the POCD.
It's interesting. 10 years ago, when we went through this, there was a big focus on if we had a major development take place up in the Route 8 North area, where we could do gravity flow to the sewer plant and so forth because of the higher elevations on to the west side of Route 8. And we looked at where would those people be looking to, look for retail and services and so forth. And it was pretty much the determination in our discussions would feed our downtown area and probably help the retail and restaurants and so forth and services grow in our main street area. Developments like where the Aurora project was proposed, that whole development with their major access to state road would be down toward the Torrington line out through, I guess, Danny Stoughton owns that property now, at least down on the Route 800 corridor. But it's down in that area that probably that population would more focus on Torrington. So, that's another consideration. But, I think personally the Winchester Center and that whole area, Winchester Lake and so on, is an area that I think I know the Land Trust made that large acquisition on South Road, and a lot of the properties are some bigger properties up there in your neck of the woods, Jerry.
Like Grantville yeah. Around there.
Yeah. So do we differentiate these areas in our outlying areas a little differently? That's another thought that hopefully tonight we'll get those wheels turning and think what you think about that.
Well, one thing, George, I think we have a very interesting opportunity here, because historically, if you look at the town of Winchester back in its early days, it was, and especially when industrialization was just coming in, you had sort of this donut concept where the city of Winstead was where everybody worked, but then the surrounding donut was actually the farms. They provided the food, and they provided a lot of the materials for the people who worked in the city. And now, because of what's happened in the recent months, we actually could reawaken or reimagine that concept, where if you take a look at some of these places and say, look, you have to have at least a minimum of 5 acres, because people are looking for space between them and their neighbors.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things I thought was disappointing about when the South Road tract. I mean, that could have attracted, wealthy a different type of clientele for the town to build houses, but have them spread out in such a way that you would not take away from the rural characteristics of this area up here. And now that you have people who are willing to pay for that coming in from New York and elsewhere, I think that we are poised to take advantage of our resources that are plentiful and be able to provide that type of environment that a number of people are looking for right now.
Well, to your point though, then are you leaning toward zoning, modifying the zoning for the that section of their community?
Possibly. I mean, and that's one of the things that I brought up in my comments on the plan. What is, and we were sort of experiencing this with recent applications. What does what does the rural zone mean right now? What does rural residential mean? I mean, if you look at what's going on up here, there's a number of large buildings going in for people doing their businesses up here. And does that take away from the character of what we're trying to do? When does rural residential stop being rural residential? And depending on the amount of acreage that you have. So I think it's something that we should take a look at and just be cognizant. And so we don't have like a flagrant abuse of what we've tried to maintain here in the town over the years. And but still, I think there's an attractiveness to this area, and especially because of the low cost of living here in this town as well. It could become quite attractive to to certain buyers and developers.
That raises the issue of the uses that are permitted and by special permit in our rural residential area. So from what you're saying, we should sit down and review that whole thing. And that's part of the terminology that could go into our POCD and that would lead us in that direction and at least give us the impetus and basically the legitimacy of looking at it that way. Because, and I think I've said, I think I copied everybody. There's this whole effort from UConn and this, I mean, I don't want to interject my personal feeling about it, but they've got this group that's called Desegregate Connecticut. And as soon as that comes up in my mind, it makes my hair stand up because you make it sound like we really have a big segregated area. And I think that it's a focus because the one that's involved in leadership in this is Ms. Bronin, who's the mayor of Hartford's wife. And they'd love to get rid of the big cities, push stuff out into the rural areas and have the rural areas supporting the big cities in a different manner that's going on right now.
Well, so put up that condos next door to him.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the point. I think that, they're trying to interject the state mandated things like the windmill site selections. They did that. They talked about congregate housing that's basically set up from Hartford, and now they're talking about the possibility of multifamily homes that are just going to be interjected into our neighborhoods. And who pays? I mean, first of all, we don't have a segregation, in my estimation. Looking at the numbers in our community, we've got multifamily that's permitted everywhere, pretty much, except for the outlying areas. But it's permitted in areas where we've got the infrastructure to support this. You've got the roads, the sewer, the water, the electricity, the gas, the sidewalks, the whole 9 yards. I think our community through the years has really, taken care of our responsibilities to everybody in the community, not just somebody who maybe have more wealth or income capability. And so we've got a good. So I don't like this one size fits all that's coming out of this Desegregate Connecticut. I mean, I even hate to say it because
it's crazy.
Yeah. So, but it's a matter of we have to, in our community, we have, one of 169. We've got to pay attention and make sure our representatives understand our point of view. I don't think anybody in the COG that I've read about supports this issue either that way. I think it should be local decision-making, and I think that that's what's kept us healthy and attractive. But again, I don't mean to, give my, it almost gets to be a political thing, I suppose, but it's not my intention.
Sure, just to go along with Jerry's talking about, there are many large land tracts in the Winchester area that, could be developed. There's 51 acres right off of Route 263 above Delaware Outdoor Adventure Camp.
Yes.
That's been for sale for several years.
Yes.
Right on Sucker Brook Road, there's a couple of areas. One's 36 acres, one's over 40 acres. That at some point, who knows what could happen with that.
Sure.
And same way around Winchester Center, there's one on Grantville Road that's over 400 acres.
Yeah,
That's been
that's
for
true.
sale for quite some while. That can be developed into a lot of things.
Yes,
So,
no, you're absolutely right.
yes.
George, the one last thing I wanted to add in here is not only the attractiveness I think that Winchester provides for a number of people who are trying to get a little bit more space, but also I think what needs to probably put into this part of the development is the communications, especially up here in Winchester Center.
For sure.
I mean, it's horrible. You have to stand with your arm extended 2 feet in order to get, cell connection. So I know people are down on the cell towers, but even like high-speed internet up here, you're limited by what you have based on the cable. So I know there's a big push in the COG as far as trying to improve communication performance up here. So I think that should probably be another line item in this section.
I totally agree with you. You don't have to go to Winchester Center. I've got AT&T, and I've got to go into a certain area of my home in order to get at least a couple of bars. It's ridiculous, and they don't hesitate to charge you. But that's a good point, Jerry. Just if you make a note of that too, and we'll these sections. That's an important part of the development. And actually, I sent you a copy of the economic development's comments on section 7, which I thought I was really appreciated that they took the time to really get into it. So we'll look at that a little later on, but that goes along with the whole, development, our grand list, the whole 9 yards. This is what keeps the health in the community and allows us to keep the infrastructure improved and viable. Anybody have any questions of Jerry? Good comments. Okay, the next 2 sections, John, you've got infrastructure and future land use and state regional.
Right. Under infrastructure, under section 8.2, I had you had non-municipal community facilities, or we had non-municipal community facilities. IORM is listed under there, which is the Order of Redmond. They're now defunct in this town.
Right.
I confirmed that.
Yeah.
Through my lodge, and I don't know what they're doing with that building there, but I think it's vacant.
Well,
right now.
it has been purchased, and they're looking to put a theater in there.
I hadn't heard that. That's great.
Yeah, I put a architect into the group that I suggested that they use, but because of this virus, they haven't done much. But it has been purchased, so that's encouraging. Yeah,
that's the first I heard of that. The next section, 8.5, under transportation, the 4th paragraph read, there are very many undocumented paper and unpaved roads. I didn't know what an undocumented paper road was, so I looked it up, and it's a road that's on a map, but not necessarily existing.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know if that would be considered documented.
Yeah, that's been a big, and a lot of it is around Highland Lake, with these little 25-foot lots. And I know we're dealing with it with sewer and water. People are, buying property. There was property that was adjacent to the Aurora proposed a development that, road. again, it was on paper and it had never been improved, but they were going to use it as a major access to the north coming into the community. So there was a lot of documentation that we required them to provide and their ability to utilize that. So there's some documentation with it, but there's a huge number of these roads, John. That's a good point. But the question is, how do we deal with it from a POCD standpoint? Do we press a direction to legitimize these things? Or, I mean, because anytime you want to turn it into an approved town road, you got improvements that have to be put in and cost to the community for maintenance. But frankly, I think there's a number of these that are getting plowed now and have been, and I think it's developed a kind of a how do you stop what you start routine. But
I think that's a good point, because that's gone through my head. I think if I haven't mentioned it to this commission, I've mentioned it to a commission of lots that have access to town roads but have not been developed, and the town roads have been let go. And when, you know, the property owner, especially in a time where real estate is so hot, when they go to want to build a home, what obligation and cost burden does that, you know, then impact the town, you know, with their budget that hasn't been planned for in any given fiscal year?
Right.
You know, that might be worthy of some research to just see, you know, what does that scenario look like? How many potential situations like that do we have? You know, worst case scenario, where all of these lots that have not been developed but could, you know, what obligation does the town, you know, what's the cost?
Yeah.
That
Well,
might be
that's-
something that,
I mean, to me, that shouldn't be too difficult to determine what our, you know, talking to Jimmy Rollins and have him give us a little bit of a presentation, because I know a lot of the stuff they're dealing with plowing. And now I know there's one on the east side of the lake that's
Yes.
being considered for an extension of sewer. And some of it's being done privately, I think. But if we had that, and then we got a measure of evaluation from Kevin Nelligan of what our responsibilities are from the town, that might help us with regards to our scope and definition of where, you know, where this is going as far as expectations of what we would like to see improved. And that's what this document really is about, is our future, not just evaluating what our past is.
and you know, reading the paragraph that John just mentioned, it's because it's something that I'm noting as applications go before zoning board of appeals and or inland wetlands, with people making improvements to their lots at Highland Lake with no plans for parking.
Mhm.
You know, so they're maximizing their development, and there's no plan for on-site parking, which really, you know, shouldn't, in my mind, be allowed. You know, as you're developing your site, as you're, you know, all your dreams and wishes, you have to include a couple parking spots on your own property.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've got regulations with regards to not parking on property that's other than a driveway. I mean, we've got those things that we have right now.
But now with the pervious pavers that we've allowed,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
Good. That's a good point.
yeah.
All right. Well, this is part of what this session is about, to spark the imagination and thought process from everybody.
To go along with the paper roads, they also want to get something from Jim on any roads that have been abandoned or discontinued, but the property never turned over to adjoining property owners.
That's a good point, Peter.
Because there's several of those. I mean, they did that with Danbury Quarter Road, the old Danbury Quarter Road off of Danbury Quarter years ago after the bridge was bad. They did discontinue a section of that road, and then they finally legally transferred the property over to the property owner. The one person owned the property on both sides of the road. So it was deeded over to them, so there was no longer a liability for the town. But there are several others in town that have been abandoned or discontinued for many years. One of which is like Blue Street Extension, runs from 263 Ashley Road over to Lake Winchester. And the reason I'm aware of that, my brother had bought a 6-acre lot there back in 1980 and wanted to build on it, and went to the town to improve the road. And basically through legal matters, he was forced to improve the road for himself and at his cost. To
Interesting.
get the house built there on the property. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we got some, those are good things to be brought up, but you're right. There's a lot of times these loose ends happen until, somebody has a need to get it corrected, and then all of a sudden that's the driving force, and it's time critical.
Yep.
Okay.
So under,
Go ahead. I'm sorry, John.
yeah, go ahead. Did you have a question?
No, I was just going to say you got that section 9 too, which is probably.
Yeah, I had a couple more things under section 8.
Okay.
Under section 8.7, I'll be brief. The first paragraph under utilities and the only paragraph under strategies for utilities, they both contain the same reference that there are no plans for sewer and water services to be extended to rural areas. It's more of a grammatical thing. I think it's just a redundant to have it in both sections spelled out almost exactly the same way. There's not much on that page except for those.
Okay.
Under section 8.8, I don't know if these maps, when I was looking at this, I didn't know if my copy had high resolution maps or if my maps really looked like the way that they looked, but the maps were pretty much useless to me.
Mm-hmm.
On section 8.8, the detail of the resolution was so small, I couldn't really make anything out. I mean, if you knew the area, you probably could, but me looking over it, I couldn't pick up a lot of detail, but that might have just been my copy. There might be a master copy somewhere that looks a lot better than what I was looking at. That was my impression. I wasn't sure.
Well, the problem is when you get to the size that would go into the book.
Yeah, so I said that maybe it could be blown up, but again, I might have not had the best resolution. I might have just had a quick copy for review. I don't know.
Well, one of the things we did back then in 10 years ago is the Northwest Conservation District actually completed 9 maps for us. And we've got a whole section of maps. I think I reviewed some of it. And Pam has looked at 2 quotes for when we get to that point are up to produce the maps. And of course, they're going to be a large scale, something that's usable in the building department and the planning department. And really the ones that go into the document itself that we have that can be, purchased or just available online, it's going to be a reduced scale, which is harder to really look at and make any decisions on. So that's important that we have the real mapping with good clarity available. And that's when we finished our review for this particular version, we've got some maps that got to be updated, and that definitely is going to be so that everybody can read them. But that's a good point. But the other thing is today, the reference where you can go online and then go, pick up a map and then blow up an area so you can really see it and make some, at least the preliminary judgments on the development capability of that property or potential. That's going to be helpful because people are looking on our website from a distance and been able to see these documents, and it's going to be helpful to make sure they're as accurate as can be. So good points.
I think that's all I had too for section 9. It was just, I had some comments about the resolution on the maps.
Mm-hmm.
Section 9.2, the map was only on half the page. It looked like it could have been increased to a whole page. 9.3, the same thing, just low resolution.
Okay.
And that was all I actually had in section 9. Section 9 looked pretty good other than that. for me.
Well, the only thing with those things is we'd have to look at, from the regional plan and make sure that whatever we come up with is going to be in harmony. And of course, whatever we come up with as a result of our activity here on this effort, will get sent to the COG and get their review and, confirmation that we're in harmony or not. And of course, they look at the state map as well. So we'll get that review, but that's, I appreciate it. Thank you.
That was all I had.
Okay. All right. Now Craig has section 10 and section 11. Talking with him tonight, he's, I know we spent a lot of time 10 years ago. Of course, you spend an awful lot of time. We spent months and months in the work on this previous edition, which we still have. And we thought that what was missing in the previous one was an implementation chapter. And we worked hard at the implement, and it was pretty extensive, obviously. But guess what? Not everybody had the enthusiasm that we had on the commission and the subcommittee. It was hard to get anybody to pursue it. And so we have had steps taken in implementation of a number of items. But whether or not, this is really a question to everybody, is do we really need to do the extensive work on an implementation chapter? I think, first of all, that this update is not going to be such a huge change from what we have right now. So just some thoughts, and I'd like to get, the next time we have a meeting and we bring this thing up, look at the implementation chapter, and because it's really a group effort to think, do we really need it? Or do each of the chapters speak loudly enough to hopefully be a consideration when, the land use board's making decisions that that should be, important enough. Conclusion is going to be, it's a natural follow through with when we finish with this, we will have to write a conclusion. So I think that that'll speak to itself. But let's pass it around and let's start off. Art, what's your thought on some of the last, discussions?
Well, on the implementation, it's pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
If you follow chapters 1 through 9,
yeah,
and people read it,
yeah,
there it's implemented.
Yeah.
I don't think you need an implementation.
Yeah, that's my thought as
chapter. The conclusion, I don't know what more you can say. It's there in front of you. Read it.
Yeah, it's going to be what we come up with on this version, and it's just going to be a summary. So
yeah,
good point. I agree. Jerry?
I see the regulations as actually the implementation as we've always followed on this committee.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, really, the rubber hits the road in the regulations. And this commission has pretty much faithfully followed the recommendations in the plan and conservation development over the years, at least that I've been on. And so I think that the zoning regulations actually make a reality, usable reality.
Well, to what you brought up too about the rural areas, I think that that's something we really need to scrutinize. So that we have to word that in the in that development part of it. And I think those are very valid contribution to the discussion. Okay, Peter.
Yeah, I go along with what Art and Jerry both have said, that I think the implementation needs to be straightforward and simple, that these are the, it's a plan of conservation development, and all boards and commissions in the town are urged to follow this plan of conservation and development and implement everything within their power.
Mm-hmm.
That's in it. It's kind of like a Bible for the town to follow.
Yeah, I think that's the important part of our, involvement here and our thoughtful consideration of the various areas. I think that it makes it more of a meaningful thing that rather than just a complying with a state statute that, you know, you got to do it. So put it in, you know, so that's important.
Well, and it also showed developers, if they do come in and look at this, that document, that this is what they can expect to get from boards and commissions.
Yeah.
They'll be looking for them to follow this.
Yeah, I think that's more and more it happens today because you get people reviewing things from a distance and not just coming in and walking around in the town.
Yes.
Okay. Will, what's your input on this?
I have a mixed input.
Okay.
First time I read the POCD, I got all excited about all the recommendations that were in there. And they basically are recommendations that sat there and did nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, about conserving property and, you know, conserving land around the lake and different things. I could almost pick out who wrote what section, just like people I know.
Yeah.
Okay. But the implementation, you know, you can say, yes, the regulations are the implementation, but all the recommendations and everything that are in there, they're just recommendations that sit there unless somebody pushes them.
True.
So I'm just kind of wondering about the recommendations, you know, the conservation of property. You know, I was looking at the town land records here, and there was just, you know, lots and lots of little property that's up around the old Highland Lake development.
Mm-hmm.
That would be perfect for the town to designate as open space.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're not going to be developed. They're sitting on the town records right now. It's not going to cost them anything.
Yeah.
You know, things like that, you know, should be pursued. That's about where I am.
Well, to your point on that, I think that the commission has, you know, when we're talking about, because there's part of the equation is people wanting just to develop and consolidate a lot of these little 25-foot lots and develop them versus should the town come forward and say, okay, we agree with the conservation and the protection from the watershed to the lake, the strength of the financial value of that lake and the protection of it. So maybe it's a consideration that we should be a little stronger in the conservation part of it to look at our watersheds, because we got watersheds that we're dealing with for protecting our drinking water, and we've got watersheds that's protecting our recreation facilities, which draws a lot of value to our community. So should we be a little stronger in how we define the importance of these things? Is that where you were talking about?
Yes, because the town already owns the properties.
Yeah.
So it's a no cost to the town.
Yeah.
Just designate them as open space and part of the watershed, and that way they can never be sold.
Yeah.
And just recommend that they do that.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
that goes along with your conservation.
All right.
We have a vast inventory here of those little lots that are around the lake that would go a long ways in the future for protecting the lake.
So that would be under chapter 6, the conservation part of this, because that's really to set out an objective for the community to be able, because it's not only just making it look nice as you drive around, it's talking about actually the importance of the watershed protection, and this, we should sell that issue to the state, for crying out loud, and get them to do more in their areas, because they own a lot of property up here. You know, we've seen with negative impact on the lake because they've ignored it.
And there was a lot of that this summer.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. That's a very valid point. So that we should really think carefully on how we word that in our conservation chapter in chapter 6. That's your assignment.
George, George, can we make that as a recommendation to the selectmen of some sort?
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with you, Peter. And I think that if we substantiate it or verify it here, validate it in our POCD when we make our presentation, and then we need to lobby for it. Because and if anybody should be more, involved in the value of this is the Board of Selectmen. I mean, we
Yes.
talk about grand list and taxation and so forth. Because some of these little lots, I mean, what is it going to generate for income to the town when you talk about the cost situation with maintaining the lake? I mean, the more education everybody has, the importance of these watersheds, and to not let the lake age more rapidly than it's going to by just by age. That's critical. So that chapter 6 is going to be an important one. And what Jerry talked about with the rural areas, we've got the Winchester Center area, and then we've got the northern section of the Route 8 corridor north. So think about that when we reconvene with regards to this discussion, and see what you might consider to recommend. So, okay. Any other comments from anybody?
George, in section 1, in introduction,
Yes.
section 10, implementation should be included in that. Something like each department has the requirement to submit changes as needed
Yeah.
to the Planning and Zoning Commission
Okay.
for
All right.
updates.
All right. That's a good idea. Okay. It's good you got a tape going on here on this, Pam. Any other comments before we go on to the next couple of things we've got is, I don't want to take us here all night, but Steve Williams' letter is fairly self-explanatory. I thought it was interesting. I sat down with Chief Fitzgerald, and he obviously is aware of the situation with Hinsdale and Bachelor School and the potential for reuse of the building. But what I brought to him was, it's really, in this document, it's not our, I don't think, in my estimation, it's not our position to go ahead and pick a piece of property and say that should be where it should be. But I said, please expose to us the needs of the department. And I think he did a good job with that. And he shared with, if we have an existing facility and you can repurpose it without having to purchase property, without having to build the primary structure, he had I think some interesting ideas. So I just want to have you take that to mind and think about it. One of the things in our conversation was concerning a topic that's pretty common in the last few years is regionalization. And we've heard in budget times from each of our close-in surrounding communities, their use of resident troopers and the amount of cost associated with that and overtime, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And now with our communications set up in Litchfield, I guess it is, Peter knows all that stuff more than any of us probably. But he was saying that maybe there's a consideration that we should be thinking in long-term about possibly being a core element to be able to supply services to, like Colebrook, to Barkhamsted in New Hartford, Norfolk, whether or not that's realistic or not, but it's in his thinking about having a facility that would take care of those kinds of needs if in fact we didn't have to build a whole brand new structure for multi-million dollars. So again, I thought his letter was well thought out. And so if you I passed it all on to you. Everybody received them, I hope.
Yeah, George, a couple of problems with that one location.
Yeah.
I mean, location is the big thing.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And having been on several school building committees, I'm very familiar with that building and
Yeah.
with it. I mean, it contains a lot of asbestos.
Yeah.
You know, there's many structural issues, structure itself.
Yeah.
There's an oil tank there that's underground. That's
Yeah.
30 years old. That has to be removed. There presently is not gas service up there to convert to gas. I mean, it has a dual fuel furnace, but the nearest gas is down at the bottom of the hill of Pratt Street,
Okay.
where it winds off and goes up to the lake. So there's quite a few issues with that. I mean, I think there may be better locations or
Well, let's see.
facility police department, but
I totally agree with you with that because, and that's what I said to him. I said, I don't personally see us putting a location for satisfaction of some of these needs.
no.
Actually, you know, over 10 years ago, working with Plattis from Yale, and he's a big guy in planning and so forth. But we talked about the Eversource property, Kinetic Light and Power, behind the hardware store, and it's more centrally located. You got all your services and utilities and everything else, and plus you're focused on the center of town. So frankly, I think personally that would be a better location for something like this for a public safety complex. But
Yes, I agree.
but it wouldn't hurt to at least consider what he's talking about as a potential need that we looked for in the future for the community. So that's really what I've asked him to focus.
Definitely is a very big, large need for that, for what he's looking for all the way around.
Well, the other thing too is, you know, when you look at the evaluation of the existing facility for a police department, you know, with holding cells and with the garage with air handling and the whole 9 yards, you know, I would hope that we could at least advance the safety and security of the people that are employed in that very important part of our community responsibilities. And also, if we freed up space in the town hall, we need some more space for record keeping and a lot of different things. And the other thing that I put into some of their heads is if Frontier is going to free up that building to acquire it for an annex, might be a good deal.
Yes, definitely.
So, okay. The other thing is we received the letter and I passed it along from EDC. It was really encouraging to me to see EDC is very active and really a good group of people.
Yep.
Very interested in the community and really hardworking. And they looked at the development aspect, and I passed it along to everybody. So it'd be important to digest that and then focus on that chapter 7, which you know, Jerry worked on, and see what we want to include with that, and make some of it's, you know, just some clerical things, but the concepts are really important to be looking at. Okay, you know, our maps, we got the list of maps. I put it on there that we don't have to spend any real time on it, but we've got to make sure our plan is in harmony with, you know, looking at what the state plan, so that has to be brought up. Regional plan has to be, make sure we're up to date on that. Future land use, I think with our new zoning regulations and so forth for Winston and the center of town and Winchester, we should be looking at updating that stuff. And obviously our zoning maps are already done, so it's just a matter of incorporating them. I did send along a copy of the 2019 CERC town profile, which fits into a lot of stuff that, you know, Peter, you talked about. There's a lot of information on there that can be very easily just incorporated. So it just for thought process. The sewer and water map, of course, I reviewed that with the commission, and that service area looks like it's still legitimate. And I'm trying to emphasize in my participation, I got a meeting tomorrow night with them, is to start being more proactive to try to expand the user base, because it's not going to cost us any more to operate the facilities, but it certainly will help stabilize the rate structure for the community. We're running a lot of time here. I didn't want to go too late. One of the things that I put on here on my sheet is the kind of an outline for implementation of this. And I put it under as a kind of a milestone timeline projection. And this is really to have you take a look at it and see how realistic this is. A lot of it is, some of it's just boilerplate that we got to input into the document. I think the vision statement is still legitimate. The planning areas, as I said in section 4, I don't think there is a change there. It basically hasn't changed in 10 years. But anyways, goals for the planning area, I don't think it need to be changed. So goals for government facilities. We got Chief Fitzgerald's input, and I met with Melanie a few months ago, and I thought we'd have something by now. I called Darlene, her secretary, today, and just I had emailed in December, but I hadn't heard back. They've got a full plate going on with the school system for sure. But if we can get that, I don't know how the projection for the education system as far as enrollment and so forth goes. We've got a lot of people moving into town, it looks like, and we've got a report that's actually in our previous document, and it's pretty easy to look at that and look at the to update to current stats. So I'm looking at Melanie to do that so we can get that information. Do we need it, with Hinsdale, that improvement and freeing up the bachelor school property for repurposing or for sale? I mean, but they're leasing the space from on the St. Anthony property. So I'm waiting for her to respond to that. But anyway, so I think if we can get that stuff all done by the end of February, we'd be in a position to go ahead and prepare something for a draft revision by the end of February. Again, I don't think it's going to be a major revision, but there's certainly some key issues that came up tonight and reinforced that we can incorporate. And then try to schedule a public meeting of the presentation of that plan by for the 8th of March. And once we go through that public hearing on that, hopefully we can start doing something more in public. And then, provide the draft by the 22nd of March. And then we'd be able to meet fairly closely the extension we have for putting this in place. And I want to just remind everybody that this document is more of a living document, really. So if we go ahead and we get this and we meet our criteria to make sure we don't jeopardize any of the potential grants coming to the town by maintaining a current POCD, if we see some weak areas, we can also bring it up and make some modifications, in the subsequent months. So I just want to keep that in mind, so that's not like something we lock in place for 10 years and nobody looks at it until, the 9th year or thereabouts. So what's everybody feel about that?
I think that's a reasonable time frame, but again, we have to get each of the other departments in the beginning of the PODC where we say introduction, and
Yeah.
then say your department, if it falls in one of the guidelines, you need to update as needed to right away. Don't wait 4 years.
Good point. Good point.
We got to put something in there that makes them accountable. They have to have that into us. We shouldn't be going, if there's major changes that need to be done,
Yeah.
then we need to do it, not wait 10 years.
Well, to your point, when you get an application, typically that's when you run up against a stone wall and say, hey, we're going to make a decision, but it's contrary to what the POCD says. And this is a reason why we think needs to be modified. That's where a good chairman of each of these commissions is going to be, aware of this. So it's just a matter of education too, Art. So
Right.
Good point. Good point. Will, what do you think?
Sounds like it could be done.
Okay. All right. John?
Anybody can do it, we can do it.
I like that. I like that attitude. Good for you.
I'm tired. I'm sorry. It's been a long day.
Oh, okay. Jerry.
I'm going to side with my friend John there. It's been a long day.
All right. Yeah, you can get, these things can carry on for years. So okay. All right. Peter?
Yes, Pam can do it if anybody can.
Okay.
Just make sure you're extra money for Christmas next year.
I think Pam she closed out her participation. Oh boy. All right. Well, this is good. I appreciate everybody's input. All right. Do we have anything else that hasn't been covered? All right. Then I think we're pretty much done till we've got a public hearing on a couple of issues on the next meeting, which is ECAD. So if you've had an opportunity, or if you haven't been up by there, just to at least get the front door look and go from there. So we have a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
Okay. Peter, is that a second?
Yes.
Okay, a second. All in favor? Very good. Thanks, everybody.